welcome. I'm delighted that you're joining me today. Thank you for setting some time aside and coming to explore the topic of constellations. So what I'd love for you to do before we start is to write down an intention. So there's something that got your attention, something that got you here today, where you set an hour of your precious time to come and explore. And I'd love to know what it is that you want to get out of this experience. Maybe write it down so that you can anchor it in. What is it that you want as a result of learning more about this technique? What called you here today? So you're welcome to share all write it down for yourself. So what I like to do
एक चीज को लेके
when we start a container is for us to land together and settle in the room. So I'm going to do a little bit of Reiki. It's a very non-invasive, gentle healing method that really helps your nervous system settle down, because there's a lot going on, people coming in, and sometimes there is noise in the background. It's okay. So let's just settle in so that you can make most of this hour, so that you can learn in a way that's most helpful for you. And while I send you some Reiki, I'm also going to lead you through some compassion phrases. For many of you, it's a very familiar modality. For others, it might be new. So all you do is to bring your attention to your heart center and solar plexus. And you're going to send love and warmth towards your whole being. And you repeat phrases exactly as I say them. We're talking to wounded parts of you, and we'll be talking a lot about wounded parts today in a different format. But we're talking to the parts that have experienced some sort of pain in the past, and we're addressing that pain, especially in the group contexts, especially in the context of learning something new, potentially. So when you're ready, bring your attention to your heart center and solar plexus, and send love and warmth towards your whole being. And please repeat after me, out loud if you can. I'm so sorry there was so much pressure to get it right. I'm so sorry you felt nervous in the face of the unknown. I'm so sorry that you had a distorted vision of yourself and your ability to learn. I'm so sorry that there were too many distractions. I'm so sorry you didn't feel safe to relax. I'm so sorry you worried that you might miss something important out. I'm so sorry that you held your breath. I'm so sorry you felt so unsure. I'm so sorry that there was too much noise in the field. Okay, let's take a nice breath. Just notice how you're feeling. How's your body? Any thoughts, sensations? Mhm. Okay. Hmm. So I think we're ready. Let's begin. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the constellation process, and I'm very open for your questions. I'm very open for us to explore it together. I don't necessarily want to be the talking head. I'd love for you to get a felt sense of what the constellations are about. So that there are different types of constellations, and I'm going to start with a traditional type called family constellations. So if there's anybody who is willing to be a volunteer so that I could demonstrate, I mean, I'm not going to do the constellation process, but I could demonstrate some elements of what it's like. Okay, Latika, I think you were first. See if I can find you, although you raised your hand, but not on the screen. I don't know if I can find you there. I'm going to pin whoever comes and we will have a chat. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah. Right. Hi, Latika. You need to unmute yourself.
Hi,
Thank you so much for raising your hand.
thank you for choosing me.
So, is there a particular issue in your life that's been bothering you?
I think it's more about health I'm like
Mhm.
concerned about. And I feel like most of my health conditions starts somewhere from my mom. Like if she gets something at whatever age, I feel like I'm getting the same.
Okay.
And somewhere I feel like the way she is now suffering with COPD and all that, I feel like it's the same. And
Mhm.
that is also transferred when it comes to lackness of scarcity about health and lackness and scarcity. Like she's a marvelous woman, but she did so much in her life, but she never thinks that she's done. But I feel like I'm also going in the same way, no matter how much I'm working hard not to.
Sure. I hear.
And I'm just like, yeah. So
Thank you. That's very clear. So let's say that Latika came today to have a family constellation. What would often happen is that the facilitator would ask her, there would be a group of people, and she would ask her to choose somebody to represent her mother. So Latika, if you could mute yourself for now, call on you if necessary. So there would be a person representing her mother. And it's incredible and uncanny how accurate that representation often is, where it's almost like the person looks exactly like her mother. It's very strange how it works. But so we've got a representative, somebody holding that energy. And then in the family constellations, Latika would choose somebody to represent her. And for you to see from the outside, to witness yourself in that particular dynamic can be incredibly powerful. So once the representatives are chosen, then you kind of allow them to do whatever they're moved to do. They might move to say something or move in a particular way. And every time there is an input from one participant, something shifts in the field. Because we're so energetically connected, it oftentimes it's amazing how that translates into movement of energy. And the more the parts are moving, the more energetic resolution happens in the field, the more the person can free themselves of the burden that they're carrying. So in this particular case, we would probably choose Latika's mother, and herself to start with. And there are beautiful elements to family constellations where you can speak to your parent at some point once there is enough energy that moved through embodied action. So there isn't a particular expectation or particular script as to what exactly people do, but they are very much informed by the energy field that we are kind of cooking together in that field. And the movement in one definitely creates a movement in the whole field. So at some point, once there is enough movement of energy, there is a possibility to have a dialogue with the mother where you could give back the burdens that you've been carrying for her, for example. The family constellation also beautiful in relation to ancestral healing. So the fact that the mother's been suffering and carrying so much burden oftentimes is an indication that there's been a burden carried through the ancestral line. And when you heal yourself through this method, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing your ancestry, but also you're healing the ancestral line in front of you so that your children don't have to carry those burdens. How does that sound, Latika? Okay, thank you so much for raising your
It's
hand.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
One question, Gulara. So when you said somebody else represents, so is it a person or is it my visualization about?
Usually a person. I do a shortcut to this technique where I use it in certain courses. For example, I do a money course where when I work on maternal and paternal energies, I help people to, we use pieces of paper to represent certain energies. And it's kind of a shortcut. It does the job, but as one of my clients described it, it's like wading into the sea up to your ankles or up to your knees. Whereas when there is a person stepping into that energy and embodying that energy, and there are words that come with it, it's so much more potent. What I love about family constellation is just witnessing yourself, standing a witness to your suffering can be so incredibly powerful and empowering and relieving to see things as they are for what it is. What's beautiful about constellations is that they definitely reveal the secret layers, the layers that you would not consciously think of. For example, the family constellations, they've done a lot of studies around vanishing twin syndrome. So oftentimes, according to family constellation studies, I think it's quite a high number, but I don't know for sure what the accurate number is, but they suggest that up to 80% of people come with a twin. So you come with a twin in the womb. At some point, the twin gets absorbed into the other baby, and the mother doesn't know, the baby doesn't know, but you grow up with a feeling like something's missing in your life, like someone's missing. There's this empty spot that nothing can fill up. And so when you have a constellation, you can sense if there's someone missing, you can definitely fill the gap by bringing that energy and acknowledging that life. So any unacknowledged life is likely to create health challenges, health issues, money issues, etc. And so, for example, if there was an abortion or miscarriage in the family and it hasn't been spoken about, it hasn't been acknowledged, sometimes it could be a silent miscarriage where you don't even know that you miscarried a child. So by bringing and acknowledging those energies, it creates alignment in the whole family system. Because when there is something out of alignment, something's missing, it creates discomfort in us. And it could be that you are, for example, a child number 5, for example, but there were 2 miscarriages. So technically you are child number 7, but you've been treated like you are number 5. And you can almost feel it in your body that you are not in your rightful place. And it creates suffering, right? So the moment you can put things in their rightful places, stand in your own rightful place, there is a certain level of settling that can happen in your whole nervous system. Because when you know that something is not quite right, it can create a lot of agitation. And then you can't put your finger on it. You don't even know why this is happening. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions so far. Yeah, Calista. Mhm. So just going back to some questions, Adam, so in family constellations, you choose somebody to play you. And then when the process comes to a good place where it feels resolution, like resolution is close, then the facilitator often invites the person to go and stand in their own place so that they can have a felt sense of what the system feels like from a resolved, healthy place. So with the adoption cases, it's quite particular. We in family constellations, you always start working with the family of origin first because something happened there. There's some trauma that happened there that created preconditions for them to give the child for adoption. It's not something that many people take lightly, right? So something happened. So we need to resolve that first before we can move on to the adopted family. Yeah. Yes, Karen, it is miraculous. Not necessarily. So Evo is asking, is witnessing is enough? Um, Not necessarily. It can be helpful for you to realize and recognize just how much you've been suffering and how much you've been carrying. Can be really empowering. But through the process itself, you come to resolve whatever was agitating and creating that situation. Okay. So let's move to the next form of constellating. And it's referred to often as an identity-orientated psychotrauma therapy. In essence, it's very similar mechanism because we're, again, using the body, we're using the energy field in order to create some movement and motion in stuck places, right? But this one is more internal. So what I would normally ask participants is to write down an intention. So they would write down, I want to lose weight, or I want to find my soulmate, or whatever it is that you want to work on. And then what we do is to choose specific words from that sentence as parts of your psyche to be represented, whether through pieces of paper or like I use this process when I do master classes. I run a master class every month, and usually I integrate this process in order to allow another doorway for a deeper release. So each word becomes a part of your psyche. And the presumption is that at some point there was a trauma that a part of your psyche is still holding on to. So, for example, you want something, you want a soulmate, but actually there's a heartbreak around love that a part of your psyche is holding on to. What's beautiful about this process is that it's internal. We're not dealing with the external characters, with a mom, with a dad. We might bring in external characters at some point, so that if a part of your psyche is holding your mother's energy, it has a chance to go back to your mother so that you could experience a part of your psyche in its own purity. But oftentimes there is some sort of split that happened due to trauma that's pulling you in different direction. A part of you says, yes, I want a soulmate, and another part that's holding that trauma saying, absolutely not. So these parts can come in at a different age point. They might be whatever your psyche is holding, right? Could be past life. I don't necessarily see as much in the process because oftentimes whatever happened in the past life, there is an echo of it in this lifetime. So oftentimes we have younger aspects that show up. And when you see it in action, everything really slows down. There's no sense of getting anywhere. You just allow the process to unfold in its own time, and it can start off really gently where one part moves in a particular way, and immediately there's an echo response in the whole room. Somebody else would do something or say something, and then that creates a response in other representatives. And gradually, that split can heal, and those parts come together for you to feel like you are whole. There's a unified front where you can move forward with more ease. You're not being pulled in one direction by one part and in another direction, another part. So, for example, even that intention you wrote today for this class, that could be a really beautiful entry point for exploring any issues that can present themselves when you are learning something, or you're interested, or you want to dive deeper. So I'm just going to pause and see if there are any questions about intention constellations. Eliza, do you want to play?
Okay. Yes. Now I get really nervous, but yes, I want to play. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have an intention of sorts?
Okay. I wrote the intention breakthrough in my healing business and success when I start my new company. But now when you started talking about that, this new way of constellation, then what popped up in my mind to work with it was making money doing my purpose work, but it's kind of connected.
Yes. Okay. So if you could choose one word out of that intention, what would be that word?
Money. Yeah.
So do you have pen and paper in front of you?
Yes.
So if you could write money on that piece of paper.
Mm.
And then put your hand on that word. You might want to close your eyes, take a nice breath. And then when you tune into that energy, how does your body feel?
I'm vibrating. There's like a lot of vibration. And when you told me to put my hand there, immediately I got like, that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Okay. So in that energy of that's dangerous, how old are you? Just see what number pops in.
8.
8. Okay. So what was going on when you were 8? Was there any...
I was a part of I was part of an opera by Mozart, and I was just one of the kids that was like part of the opera. So I was not like I didn't have anything to sing or anything. I was just part of the and we were touring and things, and it was like a big thing for me. We went to Germany and performed on this big theater, and it was like it was really big for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So What was mom and dad's relationship with money at that time? And even that trip, did that create extra expenses for them? Was there any stress around money?
When we went to Germany, we earned we got this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was we went to West Germany. So this money, it was like, it wasn't, you know, we couldn't bring the money home because it wouldn't be worth anything. And then I could buy like this jewelries and dolls, and I could buy desserts, and I could buy whatever I wanted, and I bought gifts to all my family members. And I was on this, we went to this like really, really luxurious places, and it was like kind of crazy. And like the crystal crown and the theater, it was like bigger than the entire theater room in Sweden. So it was like, yeah. And then at the same time, there was so much poverty, and I haven't kind of experienced that in Sweden. So it was like kind of like the extreme.
Yes.
Somehow. Yeah.
Really significant memory, right? Like on the one hand, you earn this money, but you can't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to kind of get rid of it because otherwise it's kind of wasted.
Yeah.
And somewhere that's still locked in your system where money is dangerous and it's not even worth trying because then you're gonna give it away and squander it. Not worth the effort.
Yeah, and something else that pops up, it was like my mother, she was going to go with me there,
Mm-hmm.
but then she got pregnant with my younger sister, so my father had to go instead.
Okay.
And I didn't really like that because I had like a better relationship with my mother, and yeah, yeah.
Right.
And now I get like nervous when I talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely some charge, and there's a lot packed into that memory. So normally when we do intention constellations, as it's referred to, this type of constellations, we choose at least 3 representatives or 3 words. So for example, we've got money here. If we were doing this process in the room, we would have 2 other parts, 2 other words, and the way they would interact with each other would create some movement and momentum in your relationship with money. But even seeing this today, I imagine that would be kind of springboard, because I know you've got some other tools that you can utilize in order to move some of this energy. I hope that this was useful.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay. Many blessings to your lives. Huh? So I'm going to check whether there are any questions. So Melissa is asking how this relates to mediums who channel family members. It's very different. It's a very different kettle of fish. It's got nothing to with channeling. It's very much an embodied practice. So in terms of directing the process, on the whole, facilitator tries to stay out of the way as much as possible. You do support the participants and representatives in perhaps feeding questions to the person whose process that is. So the person whose process is unfolding is in charge, really. The facilitator there is in service and in support and guidance. So in terms of techniques that used to clear what comes up, I mix and match. I bring a lot of different techniques when I do healing online, but in the room when you are doing family constellations, there's no need for anything else. It's like the field itself is working through people, and this embodiment that they bring to the table, it does the job. So there is no need for anything extra. Okay. So yes, Daniel, it's kind of a bit like a gestalt. But I feel there's more to it than it's not just you're not resolving it with the mind, and it's not about talking things through. Gestalt in the sense that it's quite embodied. So yeah, it can integrate split parts. It is great for empaths. I don't see why not this method, because you feel a lot and it helps. Marissa is asking, does this apply to not feeling part of the family, being so different? Yes, Marissa. And oftentimes there are very good reasons why you feel like that. And until you kind of find the root and resolve it in this energetic way, you find that you are different and don't belong with anyone, anywhere, really. Okay. Great, Susan. Can it be done online or in person only? Some people do it online. I do some variation of it online, but I find that there is certain magic that happens in person. So there's a question, can you give an example of what the two other words were? I mean, it could be any words. So for example, in that Eliza's example, I can't remember the exact words, but there was something about I earn money through living my purpose or something like that. So you could choose you could choose earn, you could choose purpose, but oftentimes it's a singular word. So we're not doing an expression because immediately there are more energies involved. So Vivian is asking, is it related to IFS? IFS is a internal family systems, is a particular approach, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. This is different from IFS. So internal family systems deal with parts of your psyche as well. There are protectors and there are wounded parts. I think I've spoken about those in some of my master classes you might have attended. So internal family systems have created the third way of constellating, where you can have animated statues of parts of your psyche. Now, this can sound quite complicated when you are trying to talk about it in theory. So let's see. Ricarda. I am going to pin you. Hi, Ricarda. Nice to see you.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed you the other day.
Oh, I felt very sorry about that. So why don't we use that as an example? So Ricarda, when you got the message that you missed me,
Yes.
how did that make you feel?
I was sort of surprised that I did miss you, actually. That's very, very unusual for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it was part of the
But
process.
I ended up in the hospital, so I
Oh.
couldn't show up anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I have a port and I had a blood clot and I had to get it out because
Okay.
it would go to my heart.
Okay.
So I chose the hospital over you.
Okay. Okay.
If you want to try it again, I would like that. But if not, that's the way life shows up.
So when you speak about it, right, there is a certain feeling in your body.
Yes.
What is it? What does it feel like?
I have kidney failure,
Mhm.
and it's a big part of me that's hopeful that Compassion Key can heal.
Mhm.
And then there's another part of me that feels doomed for life.
Right. So can you see that immediately we have two parts here, and there's a
Yeah.
split, and they're kind of pulling in different direction. There's one which is saying, and if you could give it a shape in your body, I imagine that the one that's hopeful is a bit more uplifting it, or I don't know. You could try to give it a shape if it feels right for you. But if I were to give it a shape in my body, just listening to you, oftentimes we just ask the person to do it. I'm improvising here due to time constraints. So if I were to embody that energy, it would be something more hopeful. Whereas the one that feels doomed is quite collapsed, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do in internal family system in that way of constellating is to give shape to those parts of the psyche that show themselves. And I'm sure once we start exploring those parts, there would be many other parts as well. So when you tune into that situation with your kidneys, with the health challenges, what else arises for you, Ricardo?
With the doomed part?
It could be with the doomed part. I also detected the part that has to choose, like can't have it all, has to sacrifice something in order to have something else. Does that?
Well, I have to sacrifice a lot of hours. But it's like I have a part-time job that I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the part that has to sacrifice something, right? So we bring all these parts. Thank you, Ricardo. I'm going to mute you. Thank you so much for raising your hand. So then in this process, there is a lot more autonomy that the person whose process it is. Like in family constellations and intention constellations, once you assign the role and energy to somebody else, then they move in whatever way that they feel moved to do so. It's almost like it moves through them. Whereas in this type of constellating, the person whose process it is decide how do these parts look, what would they say. And it's amazing how once you put it out of yourself, once you externalize it, you don't have to identify with those parts so strongly. What happens then is that you are way more present and you can see things for what they are rather than being in the grip of being identified with a young wounded part who feels really hopeless and collapsed and doomed. And you can make different choices from the place of presence. It's incredibly powerful. So I'm just going to check on any questions. It's a lot of information. I was utterly ambitious trying to a lot more than we may have time for. Okay. I don't necessarily use compassion key for constellations when I'm doing them in person. I use a combined compassion key and other techniques when I do this online. Well, the clearing happens through the movement and embodiment, Natalie. So not necessarily, it clearing happens through that process. Marisa, yes, it can be done with the actual family members. I do it regularly when I visit my family, but family needs to be up for it. It can be quite confronting. Guess who is going to show up in those processes? And as a facilitator, I regularly feature in my family processes as well. So can you stay neutral? That's the really big question. Okay. So what do representatives say? In family constellations and intention constellations, oftentimes there can be an impulse to say something. Sometimes the person whose process it is, they might go and interview representatives. How are you feeling? What's coming up for you? They might say, the part says, I feel like I'm 8 years old. So then whoever the process is, they might share some memory like Eliza did. And then that can create a response in the representative or in other representatives. And that creates a movement of energy. So that's very much the essence of the constellations, that it moves energy in a really beautiful and embodied way. Adam asking about embodying the statues. Yes, they basically, somebody would mirror the shape that you think that part has, and then just seeing those parts outside of yourself and them acting in a particular way. Imagine what's going on in our mind and how hard it can be to move forward with that much activity and activation. With the animated statues, it's helpful if there are more people. I mean, sure, you can give a shape to your own parts, but when you see them externalized, then it's almost like that energy goes out to them and you can be the presence, which can be incredibly healing. And from the place of presence, you can connect with those parts and almost like update them on some reality, because some of these parts are so young, they don't even realize that you are a grown-up, capable adult. They're still trying to protect you by acting in certain ways, by trying to stop you from falling in love or earning more money or whatever it might be. And so as a presence, when you come to these parts and reconnect and put them at ease, then they don't act out the way they would if they're still thinking that they're doing their job. There are no bad parts, all these parts have very positive intentions, but often very crude methods because they are so young. So let's take a breath. This was a lot of information in one go. So what I've been playing with recently is that I would love to bring this online, but I personally prefer working with this methodology in person. And so I've been conflicted because my retreats only allow 8 people. And so there's only I've got enough space for 8, and that's kind of limited. So I've been thinking of the ways, how can I bring it out in a bigger way? And what I've realized is that this method has particular essence, like particular elements that make it work. And I would love for you to have some embodied experience of that if you're up for it. I mean, you don't have to do anything I say, but if you want to play alone and you want to experience some of these elements, I would love to guide you through a very short process. I'm going to name the elements first, and then we can just see what comes up. Natalie's asking, can we constellate ourselves? It's like with any method. First of all, you know, you need to train and learn it. It looks very easy from the outside or when you talk about it, but there is quite a lot in it. Secondly, when we're in it, it can be quite hard to see it for what it is. So when somebody holds space and holds the field, I'm going to talk about the field in a minute, then you can go so much more deeper. So I would always suggest that somebody you trust and you feel safe with, that can do this process, to hold the space so that you can relax and let go. So the 4 elements that I identified through doing this work for years and years. The first element is embodiment. That constellations, what I've always loved about constellations is just how embodied it is. And when I started doing it, I was back in 2009, I was doing a PhD. I was like, you know, my body was there to carry my head, like literally. I was not very embodied. I had a lot of trauma in my body. I really struggled to stay it. And yet, once I was doing the process, that has been the biggest appeal, that you have to be in your body. Because when you step into representing somebody's mother or sister or whoever, you have no idea who that person is. You don't know how they tick. You don't know what they say. You don't know what their problem is, right? But your body does. Your body knows. And your body knows, not in a conscious way, you can't necessarily articulate it, but the moment you step into that role, some people's knees buckle down, they go down on the floor, or they feel the impulse to roll into a ball, or whatever it is. Like, if you follow the body holds all the information. It's almost like we are a tuning fork, and we can tune into the energy and tune into the information and conduct it through the body. Which then takes me to the second element, which is all about listening, right? Like, you have to listen in order to hear the guidance of the body. And then listening in and listening out as well. So yes, you're listening to whatever's happening in your body, but you're also listening to whatever's happening in the field. So when other people are moving or saying something, there is a response in you that can create movement. So just to recap, so the first one is embodiment. The second one is listening. Listening to your body and listening out. What are we listening to? It's almost like you're listening to the energy. The third one is tuning into the energy field. And the energy field is incredibly important. It's like we co-create it. The good facilitation requires to ensure that the energy field is safe and relaxed, and the more people feeling that safety in the field, the more they can tune in. And it's all in the field. It's almost like radio signals, right? We don't see them, but they're everywhere. But the moment you tune into a particular frequency, then you can get the information. And it's a bit like that when you're doing a constellation, that there is all these signals are here, and it's just a matter of tuning into the right wavelength to gather the right piece of information. And then the fourth element is about motion, bringing movement to these stuck places. So when you do constellations, there is no, like, I don't attempt to get to a happy ending. That's not the point. The moment the energy is moving, you don't know how exactly it will translate into your day-to-day life. But the fact that there is a movement and that stuck places, those stuck energies are moving is enough, and it will continue moving even after the process is complete. So if you are willing, I'd love for you to stand up. I don't have to see you. You can just do it in your own space. As long as you can hear me, that's enough. And I'd love for you to tune into the soles of your feet. Feel the bones in each foot. You might want to wiggle your foot. You might want to stand on your tiptoes. You might stand on your heels to see the effect on your body. You might even want to walk around if your space allows that. And as you move, notice how your hip bones respond to the movement of your feet. Just allow yourself to slow down enough so that you can listen. The movement can be very subtle or big. It's up to you. And then very gently relax your knees. Imagine somebody came from behind you and gently touch the back of your knees. Just allow your knees to relax and soften. And as soon as your knees relax, notice the effect on your lower back. See how your coccyx area releases itself when your knees are relaxed. And as your lower back softens, notice the effect on the rest of your spine. And you might follow the thread. You don't have to stand for this. You can still explore your spine even as you sit down. As you move your spine, notice the effects on your arms. How do your arms want to move? How are they connected to your spine? Again, as the arms move, notice the effect on your neck. How does your neck move when your arms and your spine are in motion? Notice what happens to your head when your neck and spine are in motion. And what if you could move all of your body? Just noticing how interconnected everything is. Just moving your feet, moves your pelvis. You can create movement in your spine, in your arms, your neck. And if you'd like to try it, like if you stand on your tiptoes and let go, Just notice how that little movement reverberates throughout your system, your whole system. And to me, this is very much the essence of constellations. It's just how interconnected we are, that we can tap into vast amount of information about each other just through being in our body and tapping into this interconnectedness. And as you are more in your body, I wonder what's the effect on your presence right now. You feel more present, more here? And from this place of presence, I invite you to come back as presence. And let me know, how was that? Yes, everything slows down. And that's again like a really beautiful quality of constellations where everything needs to slow right down for you to pay attention, to listen, follow the impulse. Yeah, more present and awake. And that was just 5 minutes. So what I'm planning to do is to do more of this. I'm planning to have a monthly calls where we'll be exploring each element, looking at embodiment. Another week where we'll look into listening. Another element, tuning into the field, like really working with the field. Because when you know the field and you know how to nurture it, especially as a healer, especially if you're doing groups, if you know how to work with the field, it's amazing how much can shift. The cleaner the field, the more shifts people are likely to experience. But to know how to work with that energy field is quite a skill that can be honed through doing certain exercises. This is very much about presence, about awakening, as well as the essence of constellations. It's not exactly constellations per se, but there is an opportunity to kind of really get the essence of it. And then the 4th week, motion. Yeah. So I'm also offering a bigger experience, like an immersion experience, where yes, there will be these weekly, monthly explorations, but also I am bundling it with my master classes and my 5-week course. If anybody is interested in going deeper and experiencing some elements of constellations through master classes, for example, there's absolutely no pressure to join any of this. I'm just flagging that if this way of exploring resonates with you, then there are definitely opportunities coming up that I will be doing online. I'm also doing an in-person training of all 3 ways of constellating in 2024. So there's one in October, level 1 training, and level 2 is in December. Marisa is asking, can this clear the field in a birthing room, critical healing areas in hospitals? Marisa, there's a possibility of doing a systemic constellations where you can work with the whole system, or you can work with a person who's birthing, for example. Yeah. Thanks, Roland. So there are ways of working with it, but we don't do kind of a blanket clearing on all the birthing rooms. You could work with the system as such, yes. Absolutely. Okay. Any final questions? I will send an email with all the opportunities that are present, but also leave it in the comment in case anybody wants to take a look now. So I have a link for so the first link I shared is to do the bigger experience, the immersion, the 4-month immersion. And then there is a link to the embodied presence, which is what we just had a little flavor of. So, yeah. Let me just see whether there's anything. So bring your attention to your heart center and solar plexus and send love towards your whole being. And so I'm so sorry that it all felt out of your reach. I'm so sorry that you couldn't have what you want. I'm so sorry it felt like a candy that you were not allowed to consume. I'm so sorry that it made you sad. I'm so sorry that it made you feel heartbroken. I'm so sorry it reminded you about all the missed opportunities. Okay. Anything else? Any final words before we complete for today? I know that was a lot of information. I hope that it's helpful in kind of orientating yourself in the constellation world. And if you want to go any deeper, then would love to have you on this journey. Yeah, deep gratitude to you all for co-creating, for being brave enough to play alone. And it's lovely to see you all here. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Many blessings. Bye.